All right. Good evening, everybody. I am Jacoby Waters. For those who may not know who I am, this is your first time seeing me. My name is Jacoby Waters, the founder, CEO, and president of Young Men of Distinction. And tonight we are doing week 2 of our mental and trauma workshop. And tonight we're going to dissect my first time going to therapy and how what I experienced. I will go fully in depth in my experience with going to therapy and my outlook once after I was done with going to therapy. This evening, I'm going to have her introduce herself. We have a special guest that has joined us and that will help break it down further, my experience going to therapy. And I'm gonna turn it over to her, have her introduce herself to you guys.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ezsa Allen, and I am a mental health counselor. I've been a mental health counselor for about 13 years now. I specialize in youths and adults dealing with depression, anxiety, and substance abuse, and children of trauma. That's actually what I kind of do right now. Is I am a therapist at John F. Kennedy Middle School, to give back therapy and actually just kind of promote mental health in essence, because there's still a huge stigma on therapy right now. So I went back to therapy by choice, actually, because I'm from Kennedy. I went to Kennedy, and I realized that, and when I was doing therapy with other companies, that it was predominantly schools, minority schools. We weren't in minority schools a lot. And for whatever reason that was, I just feel like it was just that huge stigma that, we're taught not to talk our business. We're taught not to kind of tell people what's wrong with us. And we kind of deal with our own issues ourselves. And we don't kind of seek help when needed, or we don't even know where to go sometimes to seek help. So that's kind of my theory on going back to Kennedy and giving back, so to speak, to those children, because mental health is where it all begins. You can talk about, gang involvement, you can talk about violence, you can talk about X, Y, and Z, but if you don't talk about mental health and everyone trying to kind of improve one's mental well-being, it's almost like you're kind of headed nowhere. So with that, I created my own mental health business called Social Age Counseling, that provides counseling for children, families, and community events. And then I created my own nonprofit too, called Mind Over You. And that's where I promote mental health awareness, education, intervention, and preventative measures in the minority communities. So I'm glad to be here tonight and listen to Jacoby's story. And it's a great honor to have him share his story, because not a lot of people like to share their personal stories. So thank you, Jacoby.
All right, thank you. So, because I went to therapy twice, so I'm going to go in reverse with the most recent to the very first time. Okay. So, when the last time I went to therapy was 2018. It was a year after my son, Jacoby Jr., was born, that I decided I wanted to fix, something in me that I was carrying a huge burden for, I want to say 20 years. And that was the passing of my grandmother. And the reason why I carried that burden was because I felt after I was the only one that was able to experience my grandmother, who was on my mother's side. And my sisters didn't get the chance to meet her, nor my son won't get the chance to meet her physically. So I carried that burden for so long, and it was something that was deep inside of me that I wanted to fix, because it was even tough to even talk about her passing, because it just wasn't, accustomed to something of that nature, that pain I just kept hidden for so long. So I decided if I wanted to be a better person for my sons, I took that initiative and wanted to go to therapy to be able to not necessarily close that chapter, but to be able to be free and talk about my grandmother and not get emotional. So I went back to my therapist and she made me have to rehash a lot of feelings that I felt when I very first found out she passed away. And my dad, he's on now. I remember like it was yesterday. It was March 10th, 1998, and he picked me up from school. And as we were driving home, that's when he revealed my grandmother passed away. And want to say, I was 9 years old. I was 9 at the time, and I didn't understand death. But when I got home, all this emotion came over me, and I just broke down and cried. Uh, Even the funeral was something that was a very hard ordeal for me to deal with. I remember seeing the casket, like I had to really revisit a lot of those old feelings that was traumatic for me. And it was a challenge. It was a bit of a challenge to have to relive a lot of those old feelings. But I came out better and I was able to talk about her, be able to, say the reason why she passed, which was due to breast cancer, which I am a big advocate of breast cancer. So any walk, I'm there because, I do it as a remembrance of her. And even when uh it will also make me carry the burden, I forgot to mention, was, I feel bad for myself that she was able to see me walk across the stage for high school and for college. And then for my sisters, they wouldn't get to experience that as well. I was able to enjoy 9 years of my grandmother and they could just hear stories. So I carried that burden for a long time. And I never told my mother that I was carrying that heavy burden. And I felt that way because I didn't want her to worry. And that was something that, so when I went to therapy and I think I went, I want to say 2 months. I went to therapy 2 months for that. And what I mean, my therapist made me really dig in and rehash a lot of those old feelings, but she gave me trigger words if it became overwhelming to be able to snap back into reality. But it's something that I feel personally that I came out stronger. I became better. And so yes, that's my most recent um recent time I went to therapy was in 2018.
Can I talk about that a little bit before you go into the next segment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you use the term burden a lot in when you're talking about your grandmother's passing, and you felt like you had a lot of burden. Are you okay with expressing what type of burdens you were feeling as opposed to your sisters, and what did that mean for you? Like, were you the oldest child, or are you the oldest child?
Yes, I'm the oldest child.
Okay. Yeah, so then you feel that pressure of trying to take care of your younger brothers and sisters?
It was more so, like I said, I was able to get the chance to experience her for 9 years of my life. All they could do is hear stories.
Uh-huh.
So I felt bad for them.
Them,
They
okay.
did get the
If
chance.
you know what it's like to be around her and experience her.
Right.
Okay, okay.
Versus them hearing stories.
And what other burdens did you feel like you took on during that period?
I took on just like now with my son, he won't be able to experience great grandmother and how it was just I felt a lot of every time I would, I had big moments in my life. I was just alone, just I break down and cry because I would think, man, she's not here to see me. It really hit home when I graduated high school that she wasn't there. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. My grandmother on my dad's side wrote me a letter, and she wrote the letter as if she was my grandmother that was in heaven.
Oh.
And I was in the back seat. I just broke down and cried.
Of course, yeah.
So that was the first initial shock of she's not going to be there, because mind you, I was 9 years old when she passed. So now fast forward, I'm 18, and I didn't know I still had a lot of those emotions inside of me.
Because you suppressed a lot of it sometimes, and sometimes that's a lot of time when we're children, that's what we do, because we don't know how to cope, right? And sometimes, mom and dad, they're busy, and when you try to explain something to them, they don't understand on your level, so to speak. Because sometimes when we look at children, we don't think that they have stressors, we don't think that they go through anything, we're just like, oh, just go sit down somewhere, or we don't take that time to kind of evaluate or even pay attention to their feelings and emotions of what they're going through. So sometimes that's what you do. You suppress a lot, and you use the term burden, and you use the term, you have a lot of self-guilt, right? Or you had a lot of self-guilt. And it's just commendable that you did go to therapy, because these things you need to learn how to process, right? Before you can get to the healing. And it sounds like your therapist did a great job of helping you to process, what your feelings were. And getting those all out, one. And like you said, getting at least to the point to where you can talk about grandma without even crying. And that actually hits home to me right now, because I'm dealing with a sick mom, and all those emotions just kind of ravel up in you. And anyone who can deal with a sick family member, we're all going to deal with death, because it's inevitable, right? And it's just learning the skills and tools on how to deal with death and grieving. And sometimes, unfortunately, some of these younger boys, they deal with death all too often, because they have their homeboys who's dying on the streets, right? And then they have the natural deaths that's occurring in the homes, and nobody's helping them process through any of this. So again, I commend you for going to therapy. What made you go to therapy with grandma?
I felt it was time. And like I said, in 2018, it marked 20 years she had passed.
Okay.
And it was something that, like I said, I want to be a better me.
Perfect.
And I feel once that chapter was closed, I feel, like I said, now I feel a better me.
You want to become a better man.
Yes.
And you can be better sometimes, but we just know that sometimes something's holding 9 times out of 10, it's our own selves that's holding us back from, progressing, so knowing that going to therapy, and you even expressing your story that going to therapy, and like you said, it makes you a stronger person in the end. Once you go through all the work and do all the tasks and tools and learn all the skills and implement them is big and key, like knowing when to implement certain things. So that's really a good part for you to grow and become a stronger person.
Thank you. All right. Before I go into the second story, do anybody have any questions they would like to ask before I move forward?
Can I ask questions?
Yes.
So I don't know the names. I just see one that's Tyrese. But I guess I'll learn as they go. Has anyone ever dealt with any deaths in the family?
Shiny. My great grandma and granddad passed away.
What's your name, Karen?
Yep. Huh?
UTC?
Yes.
Okay. So your great grandma passed away, and how did that make you feel? Were you close to grandma?
It made me like feel like kind of isolated and sad.
Yeah. And then what are some things that you did to kind of cope with grandma's death, like your grieving process? What did you do?
I just like talked to my mom, and I just like tried my best not to think too much about it because they wouldn't want me to be sad. And I think I was like 6 or 7 when they. I
Okay.
think I was in that age.
Do you find yourself still thinking about her heavily and maybe even, tearing when you think about her?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does it bother you a lot now still?
Not that much, but I still like remember it sometimes.
Okay, good. Well, I agree sometimes when people say, they wouldn't want us to be sad or they wouldn't want us to be unhappy. But they also wouldn't want you to kind of suppress those emotions and feelings like Jacoby was mentioning earlier. Because when you don't talk about your feelings or you don't talk about your emotions, you kind of suppress those in your subconscious, so to speak. And when you don't get those things out, it's going to come out one way or another, way when you don't even notice, or when you don't even know. It's like it comes out in anxiety, it comes out in anger, it comes out in, and I'm not saying that's your case. I'm just saying that it is good to talk about your feelings and get it out. And if you, like you said, you had your mom to talk to, so which was good. But in the event that you guys don't have someone to talk to, see if you can talk to or look into talking to a therapist, because that is someone who's unbiased, right? And they're just there to hear your story and to help you process through whatever it is that you're dealing with in life. Okay?
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to share?
And it doesn't even have to be someone who has been close to you. It could, or I mean, it could be close to you, but it doesn't have to be a family member. It could be like, a homeboy you guys knew that may have passed, or anybody involved in gang violence or any type of violence that just kind of passed too soon, so to speak. And the same theory and concept goes for that as well. When something happens like that, that's traumatic in your own life, it is good to kind of seek someone to vent to and get that all out and process and heal and grieve. More importantly, knowing how to grieve, because everyone grieves differently, okay? And just knowing what's best for you is key, and getting over that situation in a healthy manner so that you can move on with life and everything else that you're going to deal with in life.
Live on in my life.
All right, so
Jacoby, I want to, if I can share.
oh, go ahead, Dan.
Just listening. Hi, my name is Damone Cameron.
How are you doing?
I'm Jacoby's I'm Jacoby's dad, and just listening tonight, just with some of the things that were, shared. I think about last year in August, one of my youngest brothers, he passed away, and I found the way that I process that and handle that is, through talking with my mom, my brother, my oldest brother and my sister, because it was something really unexpected for us. I mean, he had been in the hospital for a week. He was dealing with, he couldn't breathe, and he checked himself in the hospital. And my mom was out of town, and North Dakota visiting my brother, my oldest brother, and she called me to go up to the hospital because they were saying it was serious, and we went up one night to visit him, and they were doing CPR, and they came in the room and told us that he had passed. We were hoping that he would pull through it, yeah. And he passed away, and that was devastating for us, because we were all expecting him to pull through, yeah. And I found out that sharing your feelings and how you really feel, it helps, because we all, as humans, we try to suppress those feelings, or we don't want to talk about it. And I found out, the more we talk about it, it helps to relieve the anxiety, the stress of, wondering, okay, well, why this happened, because we all find out we all have some of the same issues. We're dealing with some of the same things. You're wondering why, we all have the same feelings, like, well, I miss him. I wish I could have said this, said the last I love you, or something like that. And we all have those same issues that we're dealing with, but nobody wants to say anything, And I found out that, through sharing and talking, it helps, it helps each other to heal, So I just wanted to share that if you talk about it, just even if it were a family member, or like you said, a therapist, or somebody that you can share just how you feel, because it's okay to feel that way. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of time we think that's, I don't want to tell people how I feel because it makes me feel like I'm, they may think I'm weak. Mm-hmm. Well,
especially males. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially us as males, but we have those issues. If a person cares about you, they'll be glad to, hey, it's okay, man, share how you feel. I'm not going to judge you or say anything. Just, I'm here to help, so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much. And you made a good point, though, when you're sharing, it relieves that anxiety and that frustration that you have, but it can help others, mm-hmm. for those who don't even want to talk, and somebody that's just listening. You never know who's listening to you.
Right.
You never know what they're pulling away from what you're saying, and how you can help someone else by sharing your story. Right. So you're 100% correct, and thank you.
Yeah.
And to piggyback off my dad, I recently saw a video a year ago of my uncle, and that was the last time I saw him alive. It was at our fish fry for our organization. And I remember seeing him in the background. My dad was outside frying the fish, and it made me smile when I saw it for the first time in a year. Because my uncle, we were close in age. So for me, it hit me differently.
Yeah.
Because I thought about my mortality. Mm-hmm. And because I was like, we was only 5 years apart. So I was like, because when I thought about Nipsey Hussle, how young he was, mm-hmm. I was sad. But when it hit home for me with my uncle, it made me like, okay, this is a real thing. And it made me like, all right, I need to, all my dreams, aspirations I wanted to do, I want to make sure I'm giving it 110%. And so that's why I like to say in regards to my uncle, which is my dad's brother.
Yeah. It's funny you talked about Nipsey, because that's one, Lauren London made a comment when she was at the funeral, and she said something to the effect of, people are here on, we're loaning them. We're not going to have them forever. So be loving and caring to your family members and the people you love while they're here, because they're not going to be here forever. Death is inevitable. We're all going to die at some point. So, that kind of resonated with me a little bit, to know that love on your family members a little bit more, because you never know what happens in life. And sometimes life throws some curveballs to you that you're just not prepared to handle, and death is just one of those things that not everyone handles it properly too. Some people just, they get into a deep depression and they end up doing different things that's kind of putting them into a deeper hole. And, you know, that's just where it gets tricky, you know, because then you're going to need further assistance, not just therapy, you know, it's not just talking anymore, you know. Because some people fall into drug addiction and alcohol, or being promiscuous, and everyone has their own, you know, outlet of what they do. It's just that, you know, what I like to tell people is, what I do a lot in my mental health awareness is that we all have mental health. Okay, mental health is not just for the crazies. It's not just for the people who are sick or have disorders. We all have mental health, right? And how we act, think, how we behave, what we do, that's all our mental health, right? So the better our mental health and our mental well-being is, the better we are able to cope with life and the things that life has to throw at us. But if we're not able to cope and we're not able to, or if our mental well-being is thrown off and our basic needs aren't met, right? And we're always having to be in survival mode, that's going to kind of distort the way we think and the way we act. And we're always going to be on defense, and we're always going to be like, you know, have our own issues going on that we can't even deal with the regular things in life. And that's what I try to promote a lot, is just to make sure that you're taking care of your mental well-being just as much as you're taking care of your physical health.
All right, Justin, go ahead with your question.
Is it normal to be scared of death?
Totally normal, right? Because, like, who can answer? I mean, with respect to Christianity or with respect to religion, you're either going to hell or heaven, but no one knows exactly where you go, right? So the unknowing, it makes us afraid, or it makes us scared, and it makes us fearful, right? So that's why you have to be strong in your faith, right? And that's why you have to be, like, knowing that we're all going to make mistakes, but being a good person, right? Like, just knowing that you're here on earth for a purpose. So find your purpose, right? And live life to the fullest of how you can be, with knowing, you know, what's right and wrong. You know what I'm saying? But you're put on this earth for a reason. You're here for a reason, right? So don't waste, you know, your time doing foolishness or following somebody else's dream. Know who you are, know what you want to do, and follow that dream. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it is, we all have our own passion. We all have our ability to, the choice that we make. So be very strong and confident in what it is that you want to fulfill or do on this earth to leave that legacy, because one day you won't be here, right? So we have, you have a birthday, and then you're going to have a day of death. So knowing what you do in between is very, how to say, you have to be confident and set your mind up to, like, have that. What I try to teach my kids is to have mental strength, right? To knowing you can be and do whatever it is that you want to be. You can come out of anything that your situation is in. Now, we all have situations, we all have a story, right? But if we fight and we keep on doing what's right, we're going to come out of that situation. And if you follow your dreams and passion and do something that's worthy, you know, and something that's going to leave a good imprint. And again, back to faith, just having your faith and being strong in your faith, and to knowing, you know, that faith that you have, just believe in what your faith, and I say go with it. But it's totally normal to feel that way, to feel fearful. That's nothing wrong with feeling that way. The quote that I gave with Lauren London of knowing that we're all going to die just to love, I was like that a little bit. And I had that fear for my children. Because when you have children now, you kind of take your eyes into them and you want to protect them forever. But then you know that this world is, you know, like, things can happen that's out of your control. And especially when they become 18 and out of your household, all you can do for them is now pray for them and hope that they make the right decisions. But I had that similar fear that you're talking about, to knowing that, you know, death is real. And I'm afraid to go before my kids, and I'm afraid for my kids to go before me. So totally normal. Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, so I'm going to now, the very first time I went to therapy, which was back in 2015. And for my young men that are on the call this evening, you guys may or may not relate. So so back in 2015, after I want to say almost 4 years of being in a relationship with the young lady, it was a tumultuous breakup. It was a it was a very bad breakup to where I didn't know how to cope with these feelings. It was feelings of sadness, feelings of anger, feelings just lost. I just because to be involved with somebody for almost almost 4 years and you were engaged to this person at one point in the relationship, it was trying times for me. And I always grew up with the mind frame of, black people, we don't go to therapy. Therapy is meant for people that are crazy. All those different stigmas that came around therapy. So I finally decided to, because it was something I was dealing with internally. And I shielded from everybody because I didn't want everybody to know what was going on and what I was feeling inside. So I made the call to go to therapy. And at first, it was awkward to tell my feelings to somebody that doesn't know me. But once I got over that awkward stage and I was really able to uh, fully commit to the the sessions, it helped me heal. It helped me unpack a lot of things that I was dealing with I didn't even know I was experiencing. And it kind of like it tied to my grandmother's death because I was searching for so long to kind of fill in that void after she passed. And I tried to fix it through women. And I would get myself emotionally attached. And then when they leave, I just was heartbroken. And I was back to square one. And like I said, I knew my faith in the church, but it was something that I struggled with inside that, like I said, when I went the very first time, I did not know what I was doing. I didn't know that that's what how I was trying to really cope with my grandmother's death was through women. And I wasn't saying I'm not saying that I was a womanizer. It was more of I had to be in a relationship with a woman to feel complete. Actuality, I was just adding further more damage to myself. So once, like I said, I put in the work into therapy. Again, like I said, that's what made me open my eyes to a whole new world in regards to mental health. And like I tell people now, with mental health is a very, very key component. And it's things that as African American culture, we struggle with expressing ourselves. And we think it's a sign of weakness. Actuality, for me personally, going to therapy and have somebody that does not know you and you're able to vent and get all that off your chest, it felt better than me writing on pen and paper. Because me writing pen and paper, I could always revisit and see what I wrote. But when I'm telling somebody it's finally out, and I'll have to necessarily revisit if I want to. It's an option, it's a choice. But if I see it written, I'm gonna want to look and kind of revisit that pain. So, like I said, the first time I went, it was due to heartbreak and all the emotions I was feeling inside, and I wanted to that pain to leave. So that was the first time I went to therapy.
Okay, so I'm going to chime in before we get questions first. I again want to, I feel like I always say that when people say that they go to therapy, but I do 100% like commend people for going to therapy, because it is something that we are not taught, we're not told to do. It's something that we're looked on as a bad thing, you know, whereas, you know, white people, they might have their therapist on speed dial, you know what I'm saying? Whereas us, we don't even know how to get to one. So, you know, just making that, you know, you sharing that story again is commendable again. You talked about feeling a void. You talked about you having pain. Despite you were dealing with a breakup, I don't want to focus too much on that, because again, the key factor here is pain, right? And the key factor is filling a void. And that emotion can come to us at any time for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be that we had a breakup. It was for you, that was your story, right? But I just want to express that it can come in many forms, right? It could come from, you know, being raised with just a single parent, and 9 times out of 10, it's usually a mom, and not having that father figure in their life. So whether it be male or female, now you have a void in your heart because you don't have that, you know, primary love from both parents. That kind of it's what should have been, so to speak. You know, it could be from, you know, people always down talking you and they're talking negative to you. And if you have a family, or you're in a family dynamics that people always talking negative to you or always yelling at you, or the dynamic is just, everybody is just chaotic, you're going to make that into your own world and make it like it's normal. You know what I'm saying? And it ain't normal. And then you're not even going to know how to love because you never received love, you know, because again, you have that void that's in your spirit, so to speak. It could come into a form of death and losing someone, and grief, or losing something, because grief is another form of depression. And when we grieve, there's like different stages of grief, right? And if we don't know how to deal and cope with the proper stages, grief is going to come to us like depression, you know, and we're going to stay in that depression. If we don't know how to cope and deal with different skills to come out of it, we're going to get deeper and deeper and deeper into a hole, and then we're just going to go left. So that's what I took from your story just now, just the pain and filling a void. And you were just doing everything else you can to try to fill that void with another female. Because in relationships, it gives us a high in the beginning stages. Like, it's all beautiful in the beginning, you know, like it's just like in the beginning, it's all good and dandy. There's nothing that's wrong with that person. Even if they tell you I'm a murderer, you'll be like, oh, that's so okay, so cute. You know what I'm saying? It's like everybody just think everyone's so cool in the beginning of a relationship. And we kind of dismiss the red flags. We dismiss the things that they're doing wrong, or even talk about, we're afraid to talk about it, or kind of even give our full self in the beginning of a relationship. We kind of tend to come with people, we tend to come to see of how that person wants to see us sometimes. And sometimes we don't come with our whole self. You know what I'm saying? And it's just learning that, identifying that you are in pain and identifying that you are filling a void is the first step. And knowing, you know, self-awareness, to knowing that, okay, this is not right. I'm not doing this right. Or I'm accepting a whole bunch of bull crap from this person that's not right, because I am worth more, right? But then a lot of times we just kind of let that just pile on and put it under the rug, put it on the rug, when we should stop it from the get-go, you know? So yeah, that resonated to me with when you said you had pain and filling the void, and, you know, going to therapy help you to, now did she help you to see that that's what it was, or how did you process that?
That's how she helped me to see what it was, because she made me revisit previous relationships. She kind of touched on like my upbringing as a child, and so that's how we was able to piece together where this stemmed from, and which is stemmed from my grandmother's passing.
Yeah.
Which like I said, back then, 2015, I think I wasn't in a place, I wasn't ready yet to talk about my grandmother, even then. But 3 years later, I knew it was something that I had to do for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed. And I'm glad you did it. We can go to any questions now if anyone has any questions on it. Does anyone want to talk about any pain that they had to endure or any traumatic events, or just talking about filling a void, so to speak? Like, has anyone ever felt empty or just lonely, or they just don't know what their purpose is? You know, just kind of piggybacking off what Jacoby's talked about.
I had to, I experienced a loss of my dog, which was also my best friend in a way.
A lot of people, you say that, and a lot of people would be like, a dog, but like they do not know when a pet becomes a family member, how deep that is. And I totally resonate with you because I lost my pet like maybe 3 years ago. And it was just as if we lost a family member. So I totally understand what that means to losing a pet. And you have to treat it as if it's just like a real family, like you're losing a part of the family member, you know? And do you still feel like you have a void from that death, or do you still feel the pain?
No, I had to forgive myself.
Were you the cause of his death?
No, I should have paid more attention.
Okay. Well, you know, you can't blame yourself totally and continue to blame yourself, because then, you know, that's a negative thing, right? So how did he pass, if you mind talking about it?
It was Easter. It was Easter. My mom bring candy. He couldn't get it from my book bag because I zipped it and put it somewhere that he couldn't get it.
Okay.
And the only way he could get it was from my brother's room, which was right across. I had to go eat dinner, and since I left my door open, so he ran out and had to go in there to eat something that was laying around. Then I come back in my room after eating dinner, and he's throwing up constantly, wouldn't lay down. He wasn't the same. Then we had to take him to the vet. That was my last time seeing him.
Okay.
I didn't get to say goodbye or anything.
And that's the sad part about death. We never sometimes are able to get that goodbye. You understand? And something that I want to just kind of relate to you is that even though you could have done a million things that could have had a different turnout, it wasn't that turnout, okay? It was a turnout that it was, and you need to learn to forgive yourself, okay? And in forgiving yourself, you forgive yourself wholeheartedly, okay? You say it, you believe it, and then you have to move on from it. And I don't want to sound as harsh as it sounds to just move on, but move on from guilt, making yourself feel guilty is what I mean by moving on, okay? Because you cannot live with that guilt forever, because that is exactly what we're talking about now. You're gonna always have that hole, so to speak, or you're going to always try to, you know, like say that something is wrong. So now you're going to tell yourself that you did something wrong. Then you're going to have this core belief in your mind that you're bad, or I killed my dog. And then you're going to live with that forever. And then that's not going to be a good result at all. Okay. So when I say figure out how it is that you need to learn to forgive yourself, I mean that very confidently. Look it up. Do whatever it is that you need to do, pray about it, but then you forgive yourself and you say, you know what? I forgive myself for what went down, and let it be in the past. Now you can always remember your dog. You can always have, like, you know, an annual ritual, whatever it may be, in honor of him, but do not beat yourself up for the rest of your life for that, because you're here living now, right? And you have to, again, what we just talked about, living a life that's worthy. And we cannot live a life when you're always thinking in a negative essence of yourself, saying, I'm a bad person, or I killed my dog. Let that go.
Sometime during this year, that's when I chose to forgive myself for whatever I'd done previously. It was one night for sure. I sat down with myself and I just let everything out. I sat there, said how sorry I was to my dog. And after the next day, I felt a little bit better.
See?
It took a few days for me to fully be all right with it. But after I was all right, I was able to go to sleep without thinking about him or like having times during the day where I would think about him.
And that's the power of getting it out. Exactly what you just said. You got it out, right? And then you forgave yourself. Now you feel better about it, right? You're not holding that on to yourself anymore, blaming yourself or having that guilt trip every day. You got it out of your brain, out of your thoughts, out of your subconscious into your conscious, and you set it out and open. You said, I'm not guilty for this. I'm sorry. I forgive myself. And that's a beautiful story. Okay. So those are the actual steps that you need to take to healing and doing, moving forward in life. Okay. So good job on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job. Good job. Anybody else? All right. Issa, any final words before we close out this workshop for this evening?
I just want to say thank you again for having me. I think it was really great for my first time here. It's a great thing that what you're doing. And again, thank you for having me. If anyone has any questions, Jacoby has my information. I would like to leave everyone with the simple fact, just knowing that we all have mental health. And to just try to break that stigma every day in, however you can stop the rolling of that stigma, you stop it. Stop calling people crazy when they're seeing a therapist. Stop calling people, like that's just odd, or nah, I'm not gonna see nobody. I'm not gonna tell nobody my business. We all have issues. We all have a story, and we all need help sometimes in just kind of crossing over that hurdle or just hump that we're dealing with at that moment. So it's not a weakness. It's not something that you're doing wrong. It's actually something like Jacoby mentioned. It made him a stronger man. Okay, so that's what I leave to you guys. And I just thank you for having me again, Jacoby.
Thank you. So this will conclude week 2. We will be back the same time next week, Thursday at 8 p.m. And we're going to hear another personal story through somebody that actually dealt with depression for 2 years. So again, these conversations that that we're having is to hopefully you guys will understand the true essence of the meaning behind mental health. So when people say it, it's not just now a popular term. It's a real thing. So I hope everybody learned something tonight, and everybody have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Jacoby, I was wondering if I can have some more information about the program.
Oh, yeah, sure. So right now we are still accepting young men into the program, and our application is on our website at youngmenofdistinction.org. And we had a parent meeting yesterday. So, but yeah, the application is on our website, and we do these Zoom workshops every Thursday at 8 p.m. And I can, if you would write down your email address in the chat, I will email you tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, Jacoby.
All right, Issa.
Bye-bye.
All right,
It's okay.
I got it.
I find it hard to look at people in the face when talking. Do you know anything I could help with that?
I would say, all right, that's something I used to struggle with. Growing up, I used to be very shy, very timid, to want to look at people's faces. So I would say that comes with time and maturity. So I wouldn't say, or I would say what I've been told was go to a public speaking class. Because when you learn how to do public speaking, it gives you that sense of confidence when you are talking to somebody. But if you don't want to choose that route of public speaking, I encourage you just, like I said, it takes time. Because trust me, I dealt with it growing up. And I sing. So imagine being somebody that has a talent to sing, but when you ask me to do it on the spot, I get very shy and timid. And that's something I had to learn throughout, growing up, how to deal with that sense of being, when you get thrown stuff on the spot and when you have to look somebody in the eyes, it's okay. So we will learn more about that. And like I said, it's a process. So don't feel like right now it hurts you or hinders you. Just look at it as, all right, being in this group is, if I trust the process, I will leave out feeling confident. All right.
Yes.
So like I said, trust me, it's gonna be a process, but we're gonna learn together. As long as you put in the work, I'm putting in the work with you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jacoby.
You're welcome. I'm writing your email right now, so add this to my do list tonight to make
Okay.
sure I show you. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.